2 rungs on the ladder. I can go up 4 after this one, see?
Still a restriction on that.
Yeah. So, anyway, we're going to continue our study in Deuteronomy 31. Last week, we kind of shifted gears, and even on Wednesday night, and went back and talked about that, the old temple, the first temple. And the reason we've done that is a lot of times we lay so much emphasis and stow on that temple that was destroyed, which was the second temple in AD 70 by the Romans, which what that was all about is putting an end to the Jewish system, okay, the Jewish structure, the Jewish law, okay, and bringing in the new. So, but this morning we want to go back. Moses is winding down now. He shortly is going to pass away. Now, we still got a few more weeks in the book of Deuteronomy. Then we're going to roll over, right on over into Joshua and start on the conquest of the land of Canaan. So, but anyway, Moses now, in Deuteronomy chapter 31, is still speaking to Israel. So, what is this going to look like? Deuteronomy chapter 31, the conversation. Moses encourages the people and Joshua. He delivers the law to the priest to read to the people. And God gives Moses a song to testify against the people. And Joshua is going to receive his charge. So this is what we're going to be looking at this morning. One of the things that we're going to start seeing here is the 7 years being mentioned, that every 7 years a priest was to read the law to the people. Also involved in that 7-year period was the land was to rest. Also, the indentured servants, if were to be released, if they wanted to be released. If not, then they were taken to a doorpost, and as we remember, a hole was punched into the ear to designate them as a permanent indentured servant. So there's several things, the keeping of the feast, those types of things were supposed to happen every 7 years. If you remember in our lesson Wednesday night and last Sunday morning, we talked about Daniel and the 7 years and the 70 weeks of prophecy and the 490 years from the time that Ezra was sent to go back and rebuild the temple until the coming of Christ, okay? This is what that was about. It looks like when you go there, they failed to keep that 7-year promise, okay, that the commandment that they were told to keep. So that was punishment for that. That's why the 7's involved, okay? So anyway, we're going to see that, and Moses is going to remind them about that in Deuteronomy chapter, the Deuteronomy chapters that's to come. So Moses' charges the people, Joshua and the priests. Moses at 120 years old. Morgan, have you got that in Deuteronomy chapter 31, verses 1 and 2? Okay.
Then Moses went and spoke these words to all Israel, and he said to them, I am 120 years old today. I can no longer go out and come in. Also the Lord has said to me, you shall not cross over this Jordan.
Okay, so here Moses is acknowledging the fact that he's gotten old, 120 years old, and that he can no longer go in and come out. You know, what's he talking about there? Well, as you get older, you can kind of relate to that statement. Sometimes it is hard to go in and come out. It is hard to do the things that you used to do when you were younger. Even though we're going to find that Moses was still a strong man, it's going to talk about his natural force not being abated, but age is set in. Age is set in. And also, he's acknowledging the fact that God has already told him that you're not going to go over this river Jordan. So what Moses is doing, he's winding down his leadership with his teachings and with this song. And of course, he's going to go up on Mount Nebo and be able to look over in Deuteronomy 34, but he's not allowed to go in. So he's acknowledging to the people, my time of leadership with you is almost over. This severe correction was appropriate because at Meribah, Numbers 20, verses 7 through 12, when Israel complained and cried out for water, Moses significantly misrepresented God. He represented God by lecturing the nation harshly and unnecessarily. Moses misrepresented God by acting as if God needed him to provide water for the people. And Moses both misrepresented and disobeyed God by angrily striking the rock twice instead of speaking to the rock as God had told him. And we all know the story about that, and we covered it back when we went through the book of Numbers. Moses was being judged by a stricter standard, and I think we touched on this a little bit in the last lesson. We kind of got into this because of his leadership position in Israel and because he had a uniquely close relationship with God. At Meribah, the people acted worse than Moses did, but Moses had the greater responsibility. It is right for teachers and leaders to be judged by a stricter standard, James 3:1, though it is obviously wrong to expect perfections from leaders and teachers amongst God's people. Some powerful thoughts in there that we need to stop and think about. In general, as the members of the church, in general now, I'm just going to take all of us in general, always judged by a higher standard when it comes to our life and representing the church in the world. In general, yes. As the leadership of the church judged by a stricter standard, yes. Why is that? Because the leadership is the face of the church, right? As we assemble here this morning and as we go out in the community, we become the face of the church. We're what people associate with the church. So how is our leadership and standards supposed to be? Higher, isn't it? Okay? And as general Christians, what is our standard supposed to be as we go out into the world and represent the church? Well, who are we? We're the face of the church, aren't we? Okay? So you're held to a higher standard. Also, the control is a factor, okay? Moses had a greater responsibility to get the situation under control than the people did. Notice it said the people's behavior was unbecoming, but it was still Moses' responsibility to keep control of the situation, okay? So as leadership, you are held to a stricter and higher standard than the general populace. But does that mean the general populace can do what they want? No, no. Because in a sense, we're all working for the same goal, right? The betterment of the church. So our actions and attitude, whether we're a leadership role in the church or not, still has an impact upon the church and upon God and who we represent. We're like ambassadors in general. You know, you have ambassadors that are of this statute, then you have ambassadors down here. They're still ambassadors, right? But when things come in question, where does it all filter up to, Jeff? Goes to the head, doesn't it? Okay? So, and that's the way God has it structured. Any of you brethren have any comment on that? 1 Corinthians chapter 11 and verse 1. Let's see what Paul said here and there. Notice what Paul said about leadership and being a follower. He says this, "Be ye followers of me, even as I am also of Christ." So a lot of times we talk about following men. We're not to follow men. Yeah, what does Paul say? He says, "Follow me, even as I am of Christ." So Paul said, in the manner that I am of Christ, in the principles and practices, you're to follow me. But I'm a man. So, you know, if I outstep the bounds of imitating Christ, then guess what? I'm subject to disciplinary action, aren't I? I'm still human. You know, I'm not perfected. But follow me as I follow Christ. That's what we have, and that's what we do today. We follow those that follow Christ. And that's encouraged by us in the Bible. So, the encouragement to the children of Israel. Eric, do you have that, verses 3 through 6?
The Lord your God himself crosses over before you. He will destroy these nations from before you. You shall dispose them. Joshua and
Okay, so here we have the Lord charging Israel, and we also him mentioning Joshua is going to be the one to become the leader in the sight of Israel. Some of the things that we see here is the promise that God will go before thee and he will destroy these nations. So they already knew the outcome, didn't they? But still they had to do their part. Do we know the outcome today as Christians? Yes, we do. We know the outcome. We know we're going to win the war, okay? Now, there may be battles we don't win, per se, but God has promised us the winning of the war. But it's contingent on what? Us doing our part, see? We still got to do our part. It's not a magical formula in this, some kind of mysterious magical formula. God has said, if you do your part, I promise you, you'll win the war. Okay? So they still had to do what God said. They still had to go and conquer those nations, didn't they? Just like today. We may not necessarily be conquering nations, but we are conquering souls. We are conquering our own soul. We are defeating the enemy, the devil, by the refusal of sin and things of that nature. So it's kind of the same principle in a way, isn't it? We still have battles to be fought. And, you know, the way it is structured now, since, and we talked about that, the church is actually being put in a defensive mode since the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. The devil no longer has that power like he once had. He still has the influence on people, okay, to do what? But we're on the defensive. The church is supposed to be out in the world doing what? Preaching the gospel. We're not to be a candle that's hid, are we? You know, a light that's shining in another room is no good to the next room, is it? I mean, you still got the darkness, right? So you got to be out there in the forefront of the battle. A soldier in battle is no good behind the lines, is it? Where is he at? He's in the forefront. So there's still things that the children of Israel have got to do in order to win the war. Okay? So, and he talks about this in this verse here that we're going to see as we get over in the book of Joshua. We're going to see this again. Moses said, be strong and of good courage, fear not, now be afraid. Wow. Be strong, be of good courage. What did Moses know? What do we know today? Well, you know, if you really want to boil it down and kind of take a real hard look at it, the church and being a Christian is not for the faint of heart, is it? I mean, really, if you stop. No, there's people, and I'm not talking about having a heart trouble and stuff like that. Physically, I'm talking about if your heart's not in the battle, guess what? You're going to lose. And that's true in anything. If your heart's not in it, you know, you can put all the facade effort in it that you want, but if your heart's not in it, you're already fighting a losing battle. So God says to be strong and be of good courage. For the Lord thy God, for the Lord thy God, he it is that doeth go with thee, and he will not fail thee nor forsake thee. So do we still have that promise today? Have we been noticing some themes in all this since we started our study in Genesis and now we're in Deuteronomy? I don't know, I didn't go look, Eric, but what, 10 years later or 8 years later, or whatever the number is, and I'll have that after we finish up Deuteronomy. But anyway, God's going to always be there with us, you know. Sometimes the way may seem hard and the way may seem long, but you know, Peter said that that's the way God tempers us, isn't it? He tempers us that way. When you temper metal, what do, Daniel? You heat it, don't you? And depending upon the temperament you want and the metallurgical structure of that metal, you can make it as soft or hard as you want it to be. Depends upon what it's used as. So that's called tempering, okay? So today God uses these things to temper us, to prepare us, you know, in these things. And it's kind of interesting, he talked about in verse 4, and we talked about King Og of the Amorites, whose northern kingdom was called Bashan. When you go back there and look at it, and we're not going to go back there because we talked about Og and his bed. He was a giant of a man. They said his bed was like, 13 feet long? So they were some big people. And what's going to happen to that kingdom of Bashan? Actually, the northern tribe of Manasseh is going to inherit a lot of that land up in there. That's why he was defeated, okay? And so we remember that story. So God doesn't recognize size like man. You know, one of the things the spies said when they went over into the land of Canaan, he said, we can't take that. We're like grasshoppers to those people, okay? So there were some big folks over in that land. I mean, big, physically strong folks to be defeated. You know, we think about Goliath. You know, he stood like 9 foot 9 inches, you know. So he was, those Philistines were pretty good sized people, okay? So, but they were defeated, wasn't it? It didn't matter their size and stature. It didn't matter their size and humanity. It didn't matter what they'd done. God's able to bring them down, isn't he? And he did. And so anyway, he brings that up to remind them of what God had did to the giants in the land, if you will, okay? And so, where am I at? Okay. Moses had led Israel for 40 years, and there was no one left in Israel who had known a previous leader. Yet Israel could be confident, and Moses could go his way in peace because he knew God was with Israel. Israel, Moses, or Joshua did not have to be afraid. Instead, they could be strong and of good courage, knowing that God himself was with them. So where do we draw our strength and courage from? From God, don't we? And how do we draw it? Does he talk to us in some mysterious way? No, it's in the Word. Strength is found in the Word. That's why we're told over and over again to study the Word. Be strong in the Lord. Once more, then Moses reminded the assembly that Joshua was going to be God's choice, and we're going to see that in just a minute. To succeed him, a choice that appeared evident for many years past. Exodus chapter 17, verses 8 through 16, Exodus chapter 24, Numbers 11, and this is going to be solidified here in just a minute in Deuteronomy. And one that was solidified by repeated verbal affirmation, Numbers chapter 27, Deuteronomy chapter 1, Deuteronomy chapter 3, and we're going to see it here in this next verse in Deuteronomy chapter 31. It's what I'm trying to get to. Sometimes it's in there, I just can't get it hooked together. Now, Greg, that ain't got nothing to do with old age, has it? No, ain't got nothing to do with it. The encouragement to Joshua. Daniel, would you read verses 7 and 8?
Then Moses called Joshua and said to him in the sight of all Israel, be strong and of good courage, for you must go with this people to the land which the Lord has sworn to their fathers to give them, and you shall cause them to inherit it. And the Lord is the one who goes before you. He will be with you. He will not leave you, nor forsake you. Do not fear, nor be dismayed.
Wow, and this is going to be repeated again in verse 23. And he gave Joshua the son of Nun a charge and said, be strong and of good courage, for thou shalt bring the children of Israel into the land which I swear unto them, and I be with them. So, and we're going to find this as we roll over the book of Joshua, repeated several times about Joshua being of good courage and good strength. So, here again, and not to pound on the matter too much, did Moses and Joshua already know the end results of what was going to happen? Yeah. But they had to get there first, didn't they? Going to be a lot of battles fought. What, Dan?
They knew 40 years ago. They knew 40 years ago.
Oh, yeah, they knew. Well, you know, yeah, that's an interesting point you bring up. If you really want to back it up, go to Abraham, right? God said he was going to give him and his seed that land, didn't he? So it was a promise that was made for a long time. But as far as these people are concerned, you're absolutely right, as far as these people are concerned. Yeah, that's very good thought. It's not a foreign promise, is it? Yep. bringing the people into Canaan was God's work. He would certainly do it. He would certainly do it, but God almost always does His work through men and women who make themselves available to Him. Remember what we said? We got to do our part. Yeah, we got to do our part. The man God would use in bringing Israel into Canaan was Joshua, the former assistant to Moses. Moses blessed Joshua with this encouragement. Moses knew that Joshua might be wavering. Remember, he said, don't be dismayed. You know, sometimes we do get discouraged, and we're going to find Joshua's going to get into a big discouraged predicament not long after he goes over in the promised land and not long after Jericho fell. And I think we remember the incident. I don't want to get into it too much. Do you remember the incident at a little place called Ai? Joshua sent men down there to take Ai, and Israel was defeated. They didn't lose the war. They lost the battle, Jim. Why? Well, Joshua got dismayed, if you remember the story. He was sitting around, I'm going to just paraphrase, moping around, well, God let me do this, and I can. You know what God told him? He told him, Joshua, you need to get up. You need to go out, you got to find the problem, and the problem has to do with sin in the camp. And remember, Joshua went out and went through the camp, and he found a man named Achan. And what had Achan done? Well, when the walls of Jericho had fell, they weren't supposed to take any of that, right? What did Achan do? He took a Babylonian garment, he took some gold and silver, and he hid it in his tent. Well, what did that bring into Israel? Sin. Well, what was the leader supposed to do to this individual that had brought sin in the camp? They rooted it out, didn't they? That's why God had him defeated. I mean, and the story is that's the way sin works. Okay? You know, sometimes sin don't operate directly on you, it'll operate through somebody else. Well, what happened with Joshua? Is it something Joshua had done, or was it something the people had done under his leadership? Well, what happened? Who is the one held to a stricter standard? The leader. So what happened? Well, he suffered defeat, didn't he? What happened? Well, so Joshua found the sin in the camp, and, you know, it doesn't say why Achan took that Babylonian garment and that silver and all like that. You could only assume that, you know, they had been out in the wilderness for a long time, and, you know, and the harsh conditions and things like that. And maybe he was thinking, you know, like men think, well, you know, this pretty Babylonian garment, it's a shame to destroy it. You know, my wife had had a pretty dress, and I don't know when. Seems plausible, don't it, Danny? You know? You know, read, I mean, this gold and silver, what? I mean, this will pay for the kids' education. Who'll ever know it anyway? See what happens? That's the way the devil works, isn't it, Jim? Like that. I mean, you know, the Bible doesn't say, but there's a reason he took it. It may be it, maybe not it. I don't know. But that's the way human beings think a lot of times, isn't it? You know? Who's going to know? Look at this opportunity that I got here to secure a secure life for my wife and me and my kids. And so he reached for the opportunity. But is that what God wanted? No. God wanted Achan to understand that I'm here to care for you. Okay? So what happened to Achan and the sin? And this is a shadow of the consequences of sin. They all were stoned and burned, even the animals. Well, what's that a type of, Eric? Final judgment, isn't it? So one man's actions can have a dire effect on his family, can't it? And for generations to come, can't it? I mean, there's a lot of lessons to be learned in that little thing at Ai. And somewhere or another, I think there's a series of sermons from years ago that we have on that, about Achan and the camp and those things. So anyway, so there was going to be battles to be fought, and he told him not to be dismayed. Don't become discouraged. Don't become downtrodden, okay? There are going to be things that you're going to have to face. There are going to be battles won. There are going to be battles lost, you know? But the whole point is to win the war, isn't it? It's just like a football team, Reed. In theory, the team that has a winningest record should be the national champions, right? In theory. But does it happen that a one-loss team may become a national champion? So they lost a battle, didn't they? Did they lose a war? Mm-mm. So that's the way things work a lot of times. Okay? The encouragement to the priest, verses 9 through 13. Reed, do you have that?
So Moses wrote this law and gave it to the priests, the sons of Levi, who carried the ark of the covenant of the Lord, and to all the elders of Israel. Then Moses commanded them, saying, at the end of every 7 years, at the time of the year of remission of debts, at the feast of booths, when all Israel comes to appear before the Lord your God, at the place which you will choose, you shall read this law in front of all Israel in their hearing. Assemble the people, the men and the women, the children, and the alien who is in your town, so that they may hear and learn and fear the Lord your God, and be careful to observe all the words of this law. Your children who have not known will hear and learn to fear the Lord your God, as long as you live on the land which you are about to cross the Jordan to possess.
Okay, so now, who's Moses giving this charge about reading the word of the law every 7 years? To the priest. Well, the Levitical priesthood, as we know, the tribe of Levi did not receive a land inheritance. They were going to be dispersed as God's spokespeople, if you will, throughout the different lands, right? And so that was going to be their responsibility. And Moses put a point in it every 7 years. There comes that 7 years again. Every 7 years, there were things that God had required them to do. But what we find out in reality, it looks like they didn't do it, thereby the punishment in Babylonian exile, one for 70 years. And then you get into the 7 weeks times 70 is 490 years that Daniel talks about when your Jewish systems are going to be done away with. So these are things that they were told to do, but as we're going to find out, the reality of it was they didn't, did they? They were going to be carried away into captivity in the end. Okay, so, but anyway, they were told to deliver that, and Moses commanded them, saying, at the end of every 7 years, in the solemnity of the year of release, in the Feast of Tabernacles. So there's 3 things mentioned right there they were supposed to do every 7 years. Okay, what is that year of release? Well, that's where the indentured servants, I know the KJV uses the term slave, but as we studied that, God has always condemned slavery. Matter of fact, he said men stealers and kidnappers are caught to be put to death. So that sums that up, Eric. So God has never approved of slavery as we know it. Anyway, so those were things that they were supposed to do, but they didn't, among other things. And we know that we're going to see as we get over in chapter 33 about how the tribes even though they were blessed, began to apostatize. So all that was prophesied and talked about by Moses. Now, why is one of the reasons to have it done at least every 7 years? Notice verse 13. And that their children which have not known anything may hear. So not only, of course, did the people have a responsibility in general to teach the children, but what did the priesthood have designated to them to make sure they done every 7 years? Read the law, so the children can hear. And what he's looking at here, you know, it's kind of amazing with children. You know, by the time when they start getting 6, 7, 8 years old, what begins to happen to their sponge in their head? They absorb a lot, don't they? They sure do. Matter of fact, you know, the Catholic Church has a thing that they say if you'll give us a baby, by the time it's 5 years old, it'll be a Catholic for life. And that's their philosophy of how kids absorb things in teaching. It's amazing to me, you know, having had kids and now grandkids. It's amazing at what, you know, it amazes me listening to Titus talk at what he knows. Okay? Well, where did he learn it? Well, at home and at church, didn't he? The home taught it, the church reaffirmed it, right? So this is what he's talking about here. I mean, that is That's the way the children learn. It's a way of remembrance, that they may learn to fear the Lord your God as long as you live in the land, whether you go over Jordan to possess it. So these are things to be done. Let me ask you a question so far, what we read. Has the principal idea that God had in mind to regulate his people changed? No. One came about in a physical manner. The other one came about, as the physical was absorbed into the blood of Jesus Christ, spiritual. So the intent's always been there, Jill, you know, and what he wanted and how he regulated his people. Any of you brothers got any comment on that?
God has said, I will always be with you.
Yeah,
And he said that from the beginning of Abraham and everyone else.
that's it.
It's the people that haven't been with God.
Right. Therein lies a dilemma, is man doesn't do his part, does he? And see, that's another thing that we need to look at that as we go through this. God is going to be with them. You know, it's just like the old saying, Greg, I've heard, God feeds the birds, he gives them food. But he don't drop it in the mouth, does it? What do they have to do? They have to go out and get it, don't they? Yeah, it's the same principle. Part of the job of the Levites was to minister the word of God to Israel, as the Levites would settle in cities and villages appointed throughout all Israel. In addition, every 7 years, the Levites were to have a public reading explanation of the law of God as was modeled, and we'll get to Nehemiah chapter 8, verses 1 through 8. So there is a model of that. What was one of the first things they did when the temple was rebuilt and they found the law of the Lord? It was read, and the people rejoiced. So, you know, even though at times it seems like they may have adhered to that a little bit, overall picture is they didn't. Okay? So anyway. The law, either all the books of Moses or just focusing on Deuteronomy, was to be read every 7 years at the Feast of Tabernacles. Okay? The first we know of a public reading of the law is in Joshua chapter 8. The next we have it during the reign of Josephus, 2 Chronicles chapter 17, more than 500 years later. So what's happened here with all this? You see what I'm talking about? There's a gap of what was going on here with this, okay? And then in the reign of Josiah, there was another public reading of the law, 2 Chronicles chapter 34, more than 250 years after Jehoshaphat. So what's going on here, Daniel? Sounds like it's a hit and a miss, don't it? And you know, sometimes you even see that in the church with people's attitude, don't you? A lot of times they're hit and a miss, and sometimes they're just a complete miss, you know. Anyway, powerful lessons in all that. The preface to Joshua's inauguration has the leader of Israel. Let's see, Greg, you got that? Jeff, I'll let you read. Have you read? No, okay, I'm sorry.
And the Lord said to Moses, behold, the days approach you when you must die. Call Joshua and present yourself in the tent of meeting, that I may commission him. And Moses and Joshua went and presented themselves in the tent of meeting. And the Lord appeared in the tent in the pillar of cloud, and the pillar of cloud stood over the entrance of the tent.
Okay, and so here we have the Lord and to Moses saying, your days are going to be short. You're going to die. Now we need to get Joshua anointed or put in place as a leader of Israel. And he said, the Lord appeared in the tabernacle in a pillar of a cloud, stood over by the door of the tabernacle. Okay, and here he is. He's still going to be talking to Moses. This is the beginning of Joshua's anointing. Through the wilderness journey, Moses and Joshua often presented themselves together before the Lord. Joshua was often at the tabernacle with Moses, Exodus 33:11. This was an important aspect of Joshua's qualifications for leadership. Joshua had a real relationship with God, and he was at home in the presence of the Lord. So we find that early on, Joshua was often at the tabernacle with Moses. So Joshua was really involved in this thing from the get-go, you know? And that's one of the things that you find. If you really want to get something out of something personally, and maybe later on, what do? You get involved in it, right? You learn about it, you study about it, you know how it operates, you know how it functions, you know what's going on with it, okay? Thereby, you know, there may be a time, and of course, in the future, as the church here continues to prosper and grow, and we got a bright future here with all these kids, who's going to be the future leadership of the church? Yeah, the younger men are going to become the leadership of the church. Because, you know, Brother Con, he's 104 years old, may as well say. And, you know, he can't hardly go in or out like Moses, right? Okay? So, you know, his ability to lead has been, you know, almost completed this end, hasn't it? Well, you know, eventually, you know, sad to say, but he'll be with the other brethren out there, won't he? And, you know, I don't imagine, Eric, I'm going to live to be 104. I figure probably 71, you know, 72 would be a good number. But anyway, you know, we'll be out there, Jeff. Guess who's going to be left to lead? So that's why it's important to engage it, to be a part of it, to understand the structure and all, because the leadership torch is going to be passed. Okay, and that's what God's telling Moses. The leadership torch is going to be passed. Okay. This begins a solemn and important chapter in the history of the journey from Egypt to Canaan. What follows will be the retirement ceremony for Moses and the inauguration ceremony for Joshua. The importance of the event was marked by the visible presence of God in the pillar of the cloud. So did God take it personally, if you will, to make sure the leadership was intact? Yeah. Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. The son?
Again, God was showing everyone that he is with them.
That's right. And I'm authorized, yeah.
Later on, we'll notice too that he even did some of the same things.
Mhm.
He protected them from the enemies and even parted the waters to let them
Right.
pass on dry land.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's there. 16 to 22. An introduction to the Song of Moses, warning Israel of the future apostasy. Now, we're going to go through this song in its entirety. Probably won't be next week because I'll probably be out, but when we pick back up in Deuteronomy chapter 32, okay? And it's an interesting song of reminder. So basically, Deuteronomy 32 is a song, okay? Oh, wait a minute, 16 through 32. Where am I at again? Morgan, have you got 16 through 22, Deuteronomy chapter 31, beginning at verse 16?
And the Lord said to Moses, Behold, you will rest with your fathers, and this people will rise and play the harlot with the gods of foreigners of the land, where they go to be among them. They will forsake me and break my covenant, which I have made with them. Then my anger shall be aroused against them in that day, and I will forsake them, and I will hide my face from them, and they shall be devoured. And many evils and troubles shall befall them, but they will say in that day, Have not these evils come upon us, because our God is not among us? The 18 too?
Yeah, 16 through 22.
22, okay.
Yeah.
And I will surely hide my face in that day because of all evil which they have done, and that they have turned to other gods. Now therefore write down this song for yourselves, and teach it to the children of Israel. Put it in their mouths, that this song may be witness for me against the children of Israel. For I have brought them to the land flowing with milk and honey, of which I swore to their fathers, and they have eaten and filled themselves and grown fat. And they will turn to other gods and serve them, and they will provoke me and break my covenant. Then it shall be with many evils and troubles have come upon them, but this song will testify against them as a witness for it, will not be forgotten in the mouths of their descendants. For I know the inclination of their behavior today, even before I have brought them to the land of which I swore to give them. Therefore Moses wrote this song the same day and taught it to the children of Israel.
Okay, so what are we seeing? And this is a preface to the song in chapter 32. Why was this song wrote? Why is he doing this? What could Moses see? What did God reveal to Moses that they could see in the future? Israel was going to apostatize, right? They were going to go off and into other nations, into other gods, and things of that nature. So this song was wrote to remind them about the blessings of God and that he's always with them. So it's a song. It's a song of reminder because they could see what was going to transpire with Israel. And I'm going to have to stop right there, get ready for the worship service. So next time